a presentation. But no, you're right. I don't agree with every recommendation that ICMA made. But they did make a lot of good recommendations that we are going toward implementation thereof.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk about those things? Councilman Beltran?
I find part of this whole exercise kind of curious. In the blink of an eye, we put back 5 snowplow drivers. And we're talking about police officers that make our community safe, and we've had a 6-month debate on it. I really don't understand that. And I think that we do need to authorize 4. And then the chief and Lieutenant Gordon and you can work on their restructuring as it's going forward and see what the actual necessity is to maintain the kind of safety that our people are used to having in our communities. So, but as I say, I find it kind of silly that we did that like this, and now this is safety on the line. So.
Well, we sat those meetings, it just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
so
I
at
know.
that meeting, there just wasn't that level of interest. So here we are now with the 4, same 4.
Okay. Constable Slater?
Well, maybe we need to back up a little bit. I think this is really good news that we were all hoping we would get when we decided to initiate the ERA program and also concessions. We were hoping that we were going to, that's the reason that we asked for 0.7 instead of more, because we were hoping that we were going to get some funds. And I'm in agreement with the 4, because that's what ICMA said, we're not sustainable, okay, if we don't do that.
Right.
That's true.
So I think that's important. But equally important is, in my opinion, the 40-hour work week. Because if we can't attract or keep our employees, it doesn't matter what kind of police department we have. We need good employees, and we need to retain the employees that we have. And thirdly, we got to get our snowplowing back to 24-hour protocol. When you look at what the citizens told us in the survey, and if you want to pay attention to what they told us, that is a priority with them. So whether it's a county road, whether it's a Troy road, whatever, I would like to see some consensus from the table tonight also to have some research done. And I think Councilman Fleming brought up a little while ago, we need to look at alternatives to snow plowing, whether it's part-time, contractual. I think we need to get going on that immediately, because if we are going to get a stipend from the county, we already told them we don't want it anymore. I think we have to work diligently to see if we can even get that right now. So I think we can't wait to look for alternatives in the snowplow issue. We need to start that today. So I would like to see some alternatives to get that going again. So those are the 3 important issues that I think this good news brings to us. And I think it's imperative that we move forward quickly and get these 3 items going as quick as we can. Because this is good news. This is what we expected. This is why we've done what we've done in the past year, hoping that this would happen. And I think we all suspected that this would happen, but this is really good news for the city of Troy, in my opinion. And we need to just react quickly to it and give it back to the community, because that's where it belongs. And in closing, I just want to commend the city administration, all the employees, for the sacrifices that they've done. It's just commendable, in my humble opinion, what the employees have done here. And because of them, that's why we have $2.6 million. Not for any other reason. They didn't have to do this. They didn't have to open up their contracts. They didn't have to sit down with the administration and work out a deal here, but they did it. And we need to also help them. We can't take from them anymore, okay? We can't reduce a 40-hour work week to 32 hours. We can't do that.
I
So-
agree.
So that's equally important to me,
Right.
I agree.
okay?
Well, it is to me too. I've never been in favor of the reduced from 40 hours. I know that it was kind of like a desperation position if we didn't make up the money, but I think it's very important that we keep to the 40 hours. I also would like to comment in regard of snow plowing, and I might be in the minority, I don't know until we talk about it, but for quite some time I've expressed concern that that because we have so many roads in Troy that are county roads, and when we make up the difference from our budget in the money that they didn't pay us on the contract, I said, they need to be plowing their own roads, and then people will see what they're getting, what they're not getting. If we're going to put money back into snow plowing, I want it to go to our Troy roads first and get those to the 24-hour. And look at if we can do it. Now, I know some people are saying, well, gee, but the roads are still in Troy. Well, they are, but the County Road Commission has a way to get revenue if they wish to have their roads plowed to the 24-hour level. Then they have to step up and ask in the county level for that, because it's not only Troy roads they do roads all around in the county. So I'm objecting to us spending our City of Troy taxpayer money in addition to what people are spending on our roads to take care of the county roads. I'd like to hear from what other people think about that. Councilor Fleming?
Yeah, Mayor. First of all, I'm not surprised. I'm very pleased, but I'm not surprised that this latest forecast shows that our revenues are above our expenditures and well, below our budgeted expenditures for 2012, 2013. That's what we expected. It's not a surprise to me. As a matter of fact, Mr. Zerlag and I had a little lunch, and I told him this is about the way it was going to be based on some preliminary projections that I had, and this is right in line, I think. It's no surprise. I've been expecting this report, to reflect this. I've been really hoping to get this months ago because I knew we were going in the right direction, definitely. So that's great. It doesn't mean that we need to sit here tonight and spend it. I think we've learned a lot through this process. As far as snow plowing is concerned, thank you, Councilman Slater, for alluding to some comments that I made earlier, because I've had some more in-depth conversations regarding how we would staff for snow plowing, for emergencies. You cannot staff year-round for a snow plowing emergency. No more than a Macy's or whoever can staff for year-round for a Christmas season or a holiday season. You do that with part-time employees that are retired, wherever you work, and you get those. Maybe you pay them more, but you don't pay them benefits. We cannot sit here tonight and say we need to bring on more people to plow snow, full-time people, or add 5 people. I think that's the wrong approach. I think, management needs to look at, and I think you already are, looking at a different model than we've used in the past that will save money. We need to be going out now and looking for people that are qualified to drive those trucks, train people to drive those trucks, and not work our own employees overtime. Let them work their regular time and then have other employees. It can be done. It's a little difficult. It's a little more difficult to manage, but we don't have an equipment problem. We have a manpower issue. And to try to solve that with taking the money that we've saved here to hire more people full-time, I think is the wrong approach. So I think we need to discuss that a little more. And I think there's more than one way to do that. So that's just one suggestion. Regarding the police, maybe we do need to add back, but that's not a situation where we need to plan for tonight, because if I'm not mistaken, those officers that are primarily being cut are not this year or not next year. That's down the road. That's not a decision we need to make tonight. We need to let the police department continue to work on that. But to sit here as a council tonight and say, oh, we've got extra money, and oh, guess what? Our expenses are not as high as we thought. Surprise, surprise. We do have more revenues than expenses over the next couple of years to the tune of $600,000, and we're not going to be dipping into our fund reserve. Let's spend it. is just the absolute wrong approach. We need to be thinking about how wisely we do this. Now we've got time. It's not an emergency situation. And I think we have to address it, but to say we're going to nod around the table to hire additional people tonight, I think is really rushing to a solution that we don't have to rush to tonight. We need to work toward that.
Councilman Fleming, actually, I need to correct you. It's not hiring new people. It is not laying off some people that were anticipated to be laid off. And those people are looking every day at how many more days do I have on the job? How many more days do I have on the job? In both police and in DPW. It is not hiring additional people at all. It is simply not laying off
38.
other people. Am I correct on that?
You're correct, and the reason that I asked for direction, if you will, tonight for a resolution 2 weeks from now in the police department is because it was my understanding that we essentially embraced the recommendations from ICMA in terms of what it takes to be sustainable. And there were 3 areas where they said we were unsustainable. One area was public works, and they said add back, or don't make as severe cuts as you were going to. Instead of laying off 20, lay off 12, retain 8. And I was told by the governing body to bake those 8 positions back in a 3-year budget. They also said to be sustainable in the police department, we had to retain 4 of the 38 positions slated for layoff or elimination. And that's sustainable according to their definition. It's not sustainable according to my definition. But that's, if I were to say, let's go more than what's sustainable, I think I'd be trying to jam something down your throats tonight. I'm not saying that. All I'm asking for is to you to agree that the ICMA report was correct at their basic threshold to say that we need to retain those 4 positions for sustainability. And not to be an alarmist, but by retaining those 4 positions, we are going to have on a per capita basis less police officers per capita than Pontiac and Detroit. That's why I've got a problem with that, okay? And I've got a worse problem if I can't even get the governing body to say put the 4 back. That should not be, again, that's something that's not new. We've been talking about it for months. This would require formal action so that when we start budget sessions, which is what, Tom, 5 weeks from now? We start our budget in 5 weeks. I'd like to be able to put those numbers in there and not be subject to debate on those positions. Well, we have a lot to debate in other areas, but we need those 4 positions.
Okay. Councilman McGinnis asked for the floor.
Well, I have a couple of things to say, so I'll just throw them out there in no uncertain order. But I think the first issue is this issue of planning, that we're not looking at things from year to year now. We are looking at things several years out, 3 years out, 5 years out. And we're able to talk now in terms of numbers. We did have this discussion earlier about adding the 4 back. I think that there was always consensus at the table that we wanted to have a sustainable police department. Having these numbers here maybe gave some people more of the financial support that they needed to feel comfortable making that decision. I don't think that all of us needed to have it. I think that there is consensus at the table that the 4 need to be added back. I'm happy to see that there's a statement in your letter that says you want to address the police department and ICMA as it pertains to the report on the police department in October, because I think that we got a lot of information about how much our police department is going to change, again, because we've had a lot of things that have happened in between getting that information and now. We do need to go back and revisit and see what it's going to look like based on the plan that we have now. I think there may be some changes that will be made in the police department, but at the very least we need to plan to have those 4 officers back so that we can have a sustainable police department. I think in terms of the snow plowing issue, it's again another issue of planning. I don't think that we need to sit here at the table and really bat about the different numbers and how we could make it work. I think that, again, there's probably going to be people at the table that could say tonight that we need to give you the direction to at least explore that. I mean, it's going to be September here shortly, so if we're going to go and change a plan that's going to reevaluate what the snow plowing service is going to be like, we need to do that now. So I'm assuming if we can at least get direction tonight, that will give you the ability to then direct your department heads to come to us with the expertise that they have and lay something out there so that we can then discuss it. I don't necessarily know if it's worth it for us to really bat around numbers tonight without having that, but I think that having that direction is going to be important. And then lastly, just to kind of concur with what other people have said, I mean, this is validation that all of the hard work that we've done over the last 2 years and a lot of the really difficult decisions that have been made at the council table, in your office, in all of the offices, and within all of the employee meetings that you've had over the last 2 years, this is validation that some of those really difficult decisions were in the best interest of the city. So I think we should be happy that this is what we're getting, and I don't think we should be sitting here at the table and trying to figure out how to spend out all the money, but I think that we need to move forward and continue to make some of the tough decisions that will need to be made so we can still be sustainable in 2014 when things are going to flip back down. So,
Councilman Howard,
Yeah, I think it is important to kind of look at the bigger picture and then to kind of drill down into it. And the way, one thing is that I know on our initial budget in the fiscal year 2014, we expected to have, at the end of that fiscal year, $6.6 million unreserved, undesignated fund balance. And it's my understanding that with this memo that we're looking at a reduction in expenditures of $2.6 million per year. So under the current format, we would have a unreserved, undesignated fund balance of about $14.4 million on a budget in that year, which is going to be about $48 million. So that's about 30%. And so point number one is, what do we want to have as our minimum emergency fund balance, if you will, 10 to 15% or something else? And also, where is going to be the trough, if you will, in revenues? Because we need to make sure that we don't drop below, especially with the current situation we are in now, having a little bit more leeway. We don't want to drop below our target, of course, before we hit, well, we don't want to drop below the target at all, but we need to make it to that trough point, if you will. And then, of course, we're on better ground at that point. So that would be point number one. Point number two is we do have a number of different areas where we're lacking. One is the 4 positions in the police. Dane mentioned, or Councilman Slater, you mentioned many of them, and I think that clearly road conditions are a public safety issue, because we had some situations last year that we were about this close from needing to call an emergency just to get people off the roads. It was that dangerous. And I know we had a lot of police calls too, and that adds money unexpectedly as well. So I think that we have a number. So point number two is, what are the areas where we're lacking, if you will, and need to allocate additional funds? And I would also add some roads, John R. and Long Lake come to mind, that are in very bad shape, that perhaps we could add additional funds in the slab replacement program. And that also becomes a public safety issue, because I don't know that John R. and Long Lake roads are going to be terribly passable next spring after another winter, at least in certain areas. They're pretty bad right now. And I don't know that we have a whole lot of money that's part of that tri-party program. I don't know that that's going to go far enough. So certainly by next spring, we want to look at doing some additional repairs that aren't budgeted. And that is also a public safety issue. And then finally, if there's additional money available, we should also look at adding some low-cost recreation programs back in. And we can get a lot of bang for the buck. We're in better shape than we were certainly going into this. And I would just like to see us address these issues in a balanced manner.
Mr. Zerline?
Just 2 things. I'd like to first address the street maintenance issue, and then have Tom address the fund balance issue. But in terms of street maintenance, could I get direction on if you want us to concentrate essentially on city roads only, or county and city roads?
Mayor?
Councilman Slater?
Like, in response to what you said about I was in agreement with you before last winter.
mm-hmm.
And after I saw what happened, and after we met with the business leaders at the roundtable, and talked to some people, I don't think they give two hoots about whether it's a county road or a Troy road.
Exactly.
And if we have 24-hour protocol on the Troy roads, and I think Mr. Zerleg has brought this point up before, we would essentially have to plow down the road, and then when we got to Big Beaver, we'd have to raise the plow up and then continue on the other side of Big Beaver. So it really doesn't make any sense. But I think, at least from my perspective, I've moved on from that position, and we just have to take care of ourselves now. We can't count on the county, and we need to get the protocol back, in my opinion, and I support what Councilman Fleming said, that let's get some what-ifs, or some alternatives.
I just have to jump in for just 1 second, is that if the county plows their own road, we won't be lifting the plow because we won't be going down those. We would just be going on ours. And I don't know if council's going to go that route or not. I'm just expressing that, okay? But I think more important than that is the 40-hour work week. The police officers, I thought we'd all agreed already to put those 4 back in, but we were going to use fund balance. And we were going to keep lowering fund balance.
My recollection, Mayor, was that we were going to wait and see what happened with the concessions in the ERIC program, and then make a decision.
But there was like a consensus in the discussion of it. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Kerwin?
There wasn't a consensus and there wasn't a majority. But I do agree with what Councilmember Slater said was wait and see. And we have waited and seen until tonight. So I would suggest on a couple things we could probably do tonight. And one is addressing that issue, so it could come forward on a resolution. And the second would be the 40-hour work week. Regarding roads, we had asked to have an entire study session scheduled on roads.
Right.
And my preference would be is that we would have that as a complete discussion for council with the menu items. But I will suggest that we all look at, since we have our agendas here, exactly what it says. Honor the legacy of the past, build a strong, vibrant future, and be an attractive place to live, work, and grow a business. We cannot be an attractive place to live, work, and grow a business with the roads as they are. We cannot go through another winter like that, not for our residents, and not for people who travel to this community to work, and not for businesses who are here. We simply can't. So we'll need a menu of items. This is not sustainable based on this. We understand that. But we know from the study that was done, clear and convincing, that everybody has an expectation. What is the business we're in? We're in the services business. And people have, for a long time, expected a standard in Troy. Now, whether we can get to that 24-hour, we'll have to look on the menu of items. But we have to have safe roads. Councilmember Howlett mentioned a couple that are of concern. I would certainly expect to have come back, Manager Zerlag, for this meeting, a look at Big Beaver. Because there are concerns regarding Big Beaver. I think it also might be helpful prior to this study session, if we could have some community conversations, business matters, with some members of the business community to get some more input. Thank you for arranging the one that we had as a meeting, but we could certainly just do conversations as we've done in the past, morning, noon, and night, community center, wherever, with whomever can come, because it would be helpful to hear from businesses of all sizes on what their expectations would be for this. In terms of the 3-year, this is not a sustainable system at all. But we're going to have to address what we can and make constant. Now, Councilmember Fleming has mentioned before some of the hows. I don't want to get into the hows. Get some whats for us to look at. Bring some prices on the whats. Whether he's, the part-time, whether it's retired, that's really not our business. We shouldn't be in that business because we're really in the what we expect business. And quality services is what this community expects and has a right to. And we will not be fulfilling the goals that we spent a long time agreeing on, attract and retaining a business investment, unless we have that conversation. On these same set of goals, we talk about attracting and supporting a committed and innovative workforce. And to that end, I think that we could probably today talk about the 40-hour week, because again, that's an expectation. Anybody wants to move here a business, oh, well, don't come on Fridays because we're closed. It's insane. Is it sustainable? I don't know. And then finally, and I'll wrap up, in terms of putting aside money, the county certainly has an example. Right now, I believe the county has 38% or so in their undesignated, and they want to move that to, I think, 20% by 2014. So when Councilmember Howard brings up some percentages, I think certainly we look at the county now sitting on 38%, and then, you know, drawing that down to 20% in 2014. So those are some percentages we can use. Now, I did see that the Democrats on the county commission were trying to bring back some amendments, Mayor, and they had, one of the amendments was for $800,000 for roads in the entire county. Well, we know what our budget shows on $800,000. So if even this passes, that ain't a lot of money. It's going to be dribbled around all of Oakland County, $800,000, and we're not sure if that will pass. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Your Honor, and just a brief response. It is a what issue instead of a how issue, but as manager, I do have a concern if we're going to look at local roads only. Mr. Slater gave, I think, the best example. There are certain local roads that run perpendicular to county roads that our snowplow trucks can't get to unless we traverse a county road. And again, you know, you take Big Beaver that gets 70,000 cars a day, and there's going to be some little minor local road that's perpendicular to it that's controlled by the city that gets 70 cars a day. You know, I need to know the what. Do you want us to raise our plow on Big Beaver going to a local road that's perpendicular to it because it's the only way to get there and plow that road? I mean, that's a what that I need to know, and that'll help the menu.
And speaking of what, I want to know what the Oakland County Road Commission said, because last year, after they had such the second snowiest February and
Yes.
ever, they said they were going to do a better job coming up.
That's not what I heard.
That's what they said in papers, but I don't think it's going to happen. No, I'm just saying what was said originally, because when people were calling and complaining to them, all I'm saying is that I want it clear to the citizenry and the businesses that if we're going to expend money from our budget to take care of county roads, I want them to know that those are county roads, and that because they expected a higher level of service, they need to know where it's coming from. Because I'm just had it with this business. Okay, just take care of it, Troy. No matter, we don't care. You got the money.
And I don't mean to be argumentative, but I really do need that direction because it's tie-barred to local street maintenance.
Okay, Councilman Fleming.
I agree with our city manager here, the what issue, and with Councilman Slater and with Councilman Kerwin. We definitely have to do a better job, and we have to look at all the roads, not just the city roads, county roads. It's just not practical. Now, hopefully the county will do a better job, but I think we have to look at the worst case and be prepared in this budget and this plan for this winter to maintain the roads and get the snow off the way we have in the past, not the way we did in this past year. With the 24-hour rule I like, whether we can accomplish that or not, I don't know. But I have to still say some of the how. Just because we have money in the budget doesn't mean we need to spend it all the way we may have done in the past to address this issue. And I'll leave it at that. If there's a better way, management, I think, is already looking at that. You're probably way ahead of me on that. For that, I appreciate it. Regarding the police staffing, we may need more than 4 police officers. I don't know. But do we have to make that decision tonight? When do we have to make that decision? That's down the road, I think.
No,
But
it's not.
3-year budget.
3-year budget, for a
And
3-year
they're
budget.
getting ready to do budgets now, so they'll have to know.
They need to know on the
I'll call for a
4th for
resolution
sure.
for next week, or the next
I have
week.
no issue.
Okay. Councilwoman Beltramini, you have asked for the floor.
Well, Mayor, I understand you're a teacher to the end, and so, you know, people need to understand whose job is which roads. But in the end, it is our job.
Yes.
It is our job to keep our people safe and to keep the roads plowed and to do that as efficiently as possible. And I think that's the part that bothers me as much as anything else, is by saying with 34 1/3 square miles, we're not going to do more than half of the major roads, and yet we're going to in essence ignore them. I think the pushback on that will be worse because we're just so inefficient, and it's not going to save us all that much money. So I have to agree with Councilman Slater that, you know, we need to say to John Zerlag, see if you can get the stipend back, because the
This is
county
something.
doing it is just awful for our citizens, and it's awful for business. And when you think about the business investment in this community, we could do as you say, take care of the local roads, which are primarily residential streets, but if people can't get to a business to pick up a prescription or buy a loaf of bread or Sterno if they need it, what good is that? They have to be able to get to the hospital. They have to be able to get to the clinics. So it's our job to see that all of the roads are appropriately plowed.
See, I wouldn't have a problem with us doing that as long as we do the communication that goes with it. And that is telling people that because we value their safety and because the road commission isn't doing the 24-hour good job that we do, we're working on it. And continually saying that, because I've just, as I said, I've just had it with them. They're shirking their responsibility, giving it to us.
Madam Mayor. Oh,
If I may,
Mr. Zerle?
you don't want a city manager that gets nervous. I'm getting nervous on this issue, and I'll tell you why. Mr. Richnack's already been in contact with the road commission, and Mr. Richnack was told that it's too late for this year for the city to take back snow plowing on major roads. It's going to take the city manager to talk to the director of the road commission and really ask him nicely to please modify their budget on our behalf. So I'm thinking that the sooner we have this session on streets, the better. And Tim, am I pressing you if we do this 2 weeks from tonight with our menu of options? Can we do it?
Well, we can bring forward what we can. You know, there are a lot of questions to be answered, and that has to do with, you know, staffing, certainly, and the issue of that's been brought up about having part-time employees and whether those people out there are qualified. And currently, you know, Peggy and John will have to answer the question about whether our contracts will allow us to do that. The other issue is, I know there's a large number of our retired employees, when they left employment here, they did not continue their CDLs or their health care cards that are required because they're out of the business. They don't want to come back into that business. So I don't know what the availability of those people are. So there's a lot of unknowns out there, but when you have a reduction from our peak of 28 street employees, and we're looking at 16,
yeah.
you just can't put those people out on 14 major runs and have 2 spares because you have people who are, you know, ill, out of town, they're not going to be available for some reason at some point. I mean, we got to take a tough look at all those numbers and what we're really going to do. Because in the past, when we had 14 runs, we had 28 staff members, we rotated them every other week. Because after a week of call out, where you might get called out 5 out of 7 nights, they're not roadworthy. It's dangerous to put those people on the road. So there's going to have to be a lot of discussion.
And Your Honor, if I may, what I'll do is I'm sensing a direction here. Tomorrow I'll call Mr. Bear. Tomorrow I'll visit Mr. Bear, and I'll ask him if he can consider, without any guarantee, putting us back, having the city plow major roads. And if he would consider that, what's the latest, you know, what's the drop dead date for the city council to make that decision? He may say, John, you're already dead because their budget starts October 1st. It might already be in the works. But he may say you've got 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I'll let you know what he says, because if Mr. Bear says forget it for the major roads this year, there's really no point in discussing local roads, I think, at that point. Is that fair enough?
And we better pray we don't have a winter like we had
Yes.
this past winter.
Well, Madam Mayor, on that point, I think that it will be a good idea to have staff be proactive regarding what to do
Right.
in terms of freezing conditions. I mean, I think all of that should be written up and ready for press releases, all the way we get out that information. And to your point, I think it would be wise to have the county road commission's phone number. Because I think that people, would call us or write us, and we're like, well, I think there's a drop there. But those two things, I'd ask staff to prepare in advance. I think certainly those frozen conditions, nobody was ready for. That was a surprise, and it's true when Councilmember Howryluk brought that up. The first one, the long one, the dangerous one, police out. But I think that should be a set for us, now that we know what that looks like. What's our plan? What's the proactive plan? Our residents should know that.
Now, we're spending a lot of time on snow, that's fine. But I don't want us to lose out on the 2 points that we already brought up that I think are frankly more important. Snow is part of the year, police is all the year, 40-hour week is the whole year.
We plan on
So
bringing
can
the
we have
police
that
back
next?
in October. And
Can we have resolutions
Can we have
for
a
next-
resolution for the next meeting on that?
on those 2 items?
On adding 4 back?
Adding the 4 back
yes,
and the 40-hour.
as much as I love my employees, I wouldn't ask for a resolution at this time to not have a 40-hour week. We need to take a look at the budget and see where our revenues
I
are.
would think
All right.
so.
So the
And we need to do that.
4, okay, all right. So we're going to keep
That-
pushing it,
But
John.
that should be a priority before I think you do anything else.
Right.
Okay. But having said that, if I could ask Mr. Darling to address the fund balance issue as it relates to our reduced expenditures for the year.
Great, well, thank you. Well, let me start off by saying, congratulations to the employees of management and this council in making some hard decisions. As you can see from this graph, I mean, we were in a shortfall, overspending our revenues by a significant amount, about 2.6 million a year, and losing about 6 million over 3 years of fund balance, of unassigned, undesignated fund balance. Again, as Councilwoman Kerwin pointed out, it's still an unsustainable model at the end of the day. There's still going to have to be work done. There's going to still need to be some tough decisions to be made. With that being said, we don't have savings. We're putting off the inevitable, okay? So with that being said, as it relates to fund balance, based on the original budgets, and fund balance has some very specific terms, and our beloved GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, has added some more definitions to those that you seen last year and you'll see again this year. And so really the point is what we call unassigned fund balance. So it's not undesignated anymore, it's unassigned. So we got 6 categories. You got restricted, you got non-spendable, you've got committed, you've got assigned, and now unassigned. Okay. With that being said, based on your budget, the original budget, by the end of 14, you were going to be down to about 3.8 million of unassigned fund balance, which is about 7.6% of your annual expenditures. If these projected savings actually kick in and come to a realization, it would leave you with about 11.7 million at the end of 2014, which is about 23.7% of your annual expenditures. Again, we talk about what is the right level. My understanding is that this board, as council has adopted, around 15% as a minimum unassigned fund balance. And I don't disagree with that. And sometimes, like we said, it would be nice if it was a little bit more, as we can see these big changes in our economic situations when we can't see the floor yet. We don't know how it's going to unfold. But if we didn't have that kind of cushion, we would be taking a lot more hits to the services that we're delivering to our residents in a quicker amount of time. This gives us a chance to turn the ship. But the ship, as in the big term, is still unsustainable. It's still heading towards an end, based on the level of services that we're sustaining now. Is that, everybody in agreement with that?
Question?
Yes.
Could you explain to council the variation between the 6.6 and the 3.8 million?
The 6.6 and the 3.8.
Unassigned and assigned, Tom. You were talking about unassigned.
2014. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, the 6.6, I'm not sure.
That was the total amount.
Yeah, I mean, the 3.8 is what I had for unassigned fund balance, my projection based on the budget that was adopted,
Mhm.
which starts off with the 9.9 million projected for the end of 2011.
Mhm.
So, start with 9.9 and if I reduce what you had budgeted.
Right, and 9.9, but the 9.9 includes utilization of 2.1 for the current year, or 2 point, whatever it is.
My projection is at the end of 2011, based on when you adopted the 2012 budget, you had a revised 2011
Right.
projection, which was projected to use about 800,000, I believe, of fund balance.
Right.
So we started out with about 10.7 at the end of, that I know from our audited numbers, in 2010, so subtracted that out to come up with the 9.9 as a beginning number.
Right, but we don't have a 2015 budget, so there
Well, at the
actually,
end of 14.
right, so there actually shouldn't be anything taken out of that for roll forward, meaning there's nothing allocated in 2015, because it hasn't been
Right.
adopted.
At the end of 14 to start the beginning of 2015.
Yeah.
Based on what you had budgeted was 3.8 million. Now with these new projections, we're at least projecting that unassigned fund balance should be around 11.7. But again, it's all based on budget. You know, that's going to change as soon as we get back into the budgeting process.
So the number at 2011 was how much again?
2011, I'm projecting, at least based on your projections when you did the 2012 budget, should be about 9.9 million of unassigned fund balance.
9.9?
9,900,000.
So you're talking about utilization of $6.1 million in fund balance in 2013 and 2014?
Well, that's what you had budgeted. You had budgeted use of 2.6 in 2012, 780,000.
2012 wouldn't be in the unallocated fund balance because it's already.
Well, I would have to assume that it's all going to come out of unassigned. I can't tell you if it's out of restricted or not.
Because our original budget actually showed a 2014 unallocated fund balance of 6.6. But
Right.
maybe this isn't the form to do it. Maybe if we could just have.
But I had to use the
Yeah.
assumption that it's coming out of unassigned, because restricted, you can't, you know, you can't appropriate that. It's restricted for a specific purpose. So, and we don't budget on, you know, restricted fund balance. We, theoretically, we only budget.
That's the difference between your numbers and Mr. Harlech's numbers, though, is that you're not including the restricted and he is. So your number's going to be higher.
Or maybe he's
Harlech
using
because-
assigned.
Yeah, and assigned. And Tom is talking strictly about undesignated, unreserved.
Unassigned.
Yeah, okay.
So am I.
But that number wouldn't be that high if you didn't include the restricted.
No, I think that the difference is the starting point, because when you look at the end of fiscal 2011,
Yeah.
you can't include what is already appropriated in 2012. And I think that's
Oh, I
probably,
did. No.
that's probably what the difference is, because we're going from 9.9 to 3.8. We're only talking about 2 years of budgeting. So, like I said, I don't think this is the form. This is
Yeah,
probably
maybe
something we need to figure out.
If you want to talk to Tom, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we can certainly do that.
Yeah.
Fine with me.
Just get on the same page, yeah.
You understand where I got the 9.9 from?
Okay.
It's that true 2010 ending numbers, less your last projected for 2011, the use of about 800,000 is, right, I just have that, so we can figure that out.
Okay.
I have one other point.
Yes, Councilman Howard?
And the one thing that's kind of like the gorilla kind of in the corner, if you will, is the DDA. And my concern is, are we going to actually have to set aside money to bail out the DDA? Is the county going to have to do that? And so I'm a little bit, I think that should be part of the equation when we have these discussions, because if the DDA is currently showing that it won't have money to continue to pay off those bonds, and we want to make sure that they do, otherwise it's going to have ramifications for the rest of the city, and the county for that matter, and the state.
We're out of money with the DDA essentially to match our debt service, I think it's 2015. And we've had an executive session with the DDA. We're going to continue to do that until we come up with a solution, if you will, and then in executive session, present that proposed solution to City Council. So the short answer is yes, but we can't do it at this time until we get the DDA and do some work that we're doing for the DDA at this point in time.
Two things. One is, can we keep the council in the loop as far as what the possible options are? And then the other item is, on a totally different note. I'm a little bit wary about making major policy decisions, especially towards the end of October, when at least 3/7 of the city council is going to change over. So if we're going to get much past it, say October 1st, then I would, and it's not a time-sensitive issue, I would strongly encourage holding off until after the election so the new council can put its stamp on that decision.
The first part, I'm going to defer to Lori Bloom on if we can disclose the options.
DDA. Well, yeah, I mean, I can't discuss what was discussed in the DDA exec session.
Okay.
The theoretical constructs of how to handle it can certainly be divulged to the city council, especially as the governing body. And certainly not the, I'm not referring to the executive discussion or the closed session, but the theories about how to handle the DDA.
Some of it, it might be a little premature because there are still options that are being explored.
Okay. As soon as it's possible, Councilman Howard, I'm sure that council will be apprised of it, but it's too premature tonight.
I'm sorry, exactly how is it premature? Because, we're trying to run a city here, and we need to know, and we have a problem, and we need to know what the possible solutions are. That body is going to be making some decisions about it, and we need to be kept in a loop. We need to let them do their job, but we also need to know what those theoreticals are. I'm not sure. I don't really agree that it's that difficult.
Well, we've given you our answer, but you don't accept our answer, but that's what the answer is. Councilman Beltrami, somebody over here was signaling. Councilman
Well, I
Slater?
just want to kind of, if we're getting near the end, I want to make sure that,
Right.
that Mr. Zerleg is okay with the direction that we came to tonight, and that is hopefully in two weeks, we're going to have a study session on snow plowing alternatives and the roads and plowing.
Yes, contingent upon what Mr. Bear tells me.
Regardless,
Regardless of
we're
that,
going to have a study session.
we still need to talk about roads, I think, and even snow.
Including maintenance,
Right.
not just snow plowing.
Right,
Right.
right, yeah.
Okay. Just a point of clarification. There's really three components of roads. There's four components. There's local and major roads for maintenance. That's one. There's snow plowing as well, and then there's construction, reconstruction, and that also involved at that point the engineering department, Mr. Miller, because they're responsible for that. We have a list of what we call unmet capital needs, and we can talk about those unmet needs. And so essentially we're talking about, and just for clarification, snow plowing, number one, for local and major roads. Okay. If Mr. Bear says, John, we're going to plow the major roads, not to be argumentative, I don't see a point in talking about plowing local roads. Well, we can talk about how we're going to put up the phone numbers of the road commission and what we'll do for severe emergencies. We'll be happy to talk about that. Mr. Bear says that there's still time for us to consider having a stipend come to the city for major roads. Then Tim and Mark and Steve and myself will jump on some methodologies, if you will, to determine what that cost will be. We'll look at what Mr. Fleming said in terms of whether you can have independent contractors, whether they're ex-employees or they're Joe's snowplowing company, come in to augment our current slate of people. And we'll get cost data for that. There's also the issue of going from, in terms of maintenance, good roads to fair roads. And we had that discussion during budget sessions, and I was told to budget for fair roads.
Right.
Okay. Do you want to revisit that as well?
Well, I thought Councilman Harlech brought up.
Got up two roads in Big Beaver.
Yeah, in Big Beaver, and I don't know that we can't revisit that discussion again. I think it mirrors.
Are they still going to do tri-party? I thought, are they going to still do the tri-party
I
program?
believe you are, Mark, are we?
I thought there was.
They extended it, they did extend it 1 year, which was unexpected, and it's expected to go away.
Because Yeah,
What-
well, that's what I mean, because the roads that were mentioned, again, are county roads.
Right.
And if they're not gonna have the tri-party,
We still can't let them fall apart. I guess
But-
it has to be an
complicates
edible,
things.
it has to be an edible study session. It can't be, well, you could have all that when we know that we can't. But we know that the citizens and the businesses have said we can't have another winter like this. And we know that we're seeing some of our major roads, Councilmember Harlech mentioned two, that are falling apart. We can't just let them go in disrepair. So on a very small thing, in a doable study session, with some outcome done, not a theoretical discussion, but a menu of some of the funds that we have, what we can do. And it will include snow plowing and some road repair.
Right. Again, I'm asking for clarification because I'll be looking at Mark and Tim and I'll say, okay, you know what we talked about last night? Give me a report in 7 days. And I'll say, what are you talking about, John? What do I do with specificity? And I'll say, well, okay, we'll do snow plowing, we'll do costs on that. I'll talk to Brent Bear. We'll revisit the PowerPoint presentation on what a good road looks like and what a fair road looks like. And you're budgeting $3 million for good roads, you need $5 million. We budget $3 million for fair roads, you need $5 million for good roads. And where's that money coming from? And where would it go? We have a slate of major road projects that, we do have a $100 million 6-year rolling budget for capital. So we're pretty good, I think, on our infrastructure in terms of reconstruction and so forth. Could we be better? Well, we can always be better. I could probably show you $50 million of on-net needs on roads alone. But we won't go there. But I can, again, revisit where we are in our $100 million capital projects for roads. That's all I can do. There's maintenance and reconstruction. I'll be happy to give that information to you and alternative ways to fund it. Now, Tim, are you clear on that?
Yes.
Mark, are you clear on that?
But I'm not clear. I'm not clear because if Mr. Bear says, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. We have to still find a solution, okay? Or maybe we have to go to somebody else besides Mr. Bear. But to me, just because Mr. Bear says, no, that's not acceptable to us, I don't think that's acceptable to us. We have to look for alternatives because the citizens here told us, I want to get out of my driveway and I want to go to work. And when I get done, I want to come home and get into my driveway. And we got to look for solutions. And just because Mr. Bear says, I'm sorry, you're too late, we still have to find a solution, in my opinion.
Agreed.
And in 2 weeks, if Mr. Bear says no, I think we have to sit around here and find out what we're going to do.
And I think it's going to have to be a reality conversation, John. That's why I don't want to hear all over again everything we heard in budget. I don't want any of those PowerPoints. But in terms of reality and what we see on roads, whether it's specific slab replacement or something else, we can't wait 6 years until that's up again. We recognize that some are falling apart now. Those specific ones need to be addressed. It does impact a lot of people, and I think that's, well, I don't want to speak for Councilman Harlech, but it's a safety issue. It's a safety issue.
I totally concur.
Councilwoman McGinnis, I say signal.
Well, I just think that we can't say that that would be the end of the discussion if the phone call that you had or the visit that you had goes in a way that maybe is not best case scenario, that we still have to come back together and say, okay, well now we know for certain that he said yes or no or something in between and then move forward from there. I don't think that anyone at the table feels comfortable just saying,
That's correct.
whatever the answer is, we just have to deal with it. I think we at least need to come back together and then reevaluate what our options are.
But after we know his answer, it'll be easier for us to say.
Oh, yeah.
We sent you back. Yeah, we sent you back to the employees over and over and over again. And and that's 8 different groups, 10%. So we're sending you, John. This is it.
And then the other issue is, was a resolution coming back to us on the 4
Yes.
for the
Yes.
police department.
That we settled early.
And we're going to hold off on the resolution for the 40-hour work week at this point, but that is an objective for us.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a priority for you, that'd be,
That's a
I'd like to know
priority.
that, because
Yes,
that way
it
there's
is.
other elements, you know, it's not like we're finding a shoebox full of money here.
No.
You know, and,
No, it's not only a priority, I mean, it's one of our goals, attract and support a committed and innovative work. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is that we've shrunk to a point where more work is on fewer people. And yet we are in the services business, and this community still wants quality services. That end has to be met. And I don't see it happening on a less than 40-hour week.
I agree.
Well, I don't think we can attract.
They're not even-
We can't attract new employees here without a firm decision by this
Give them
council.
a stay.
Absolutely right. I absolutely agree with Councilor Slater, so better cook those numbers too.
Okay. Right? You said, John?
That has to be the next one.
Pardon?
That has to be the next one.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah, it will be.
it has to be the next one.
Okay, so now the next time we meet is the 12th, right?
That's your assignment time.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, we're adjourned then.
Let me know if the number is. Yeah.